So the first question we've got is, what is the best way to cope with negative or seemingly inappropriate comments? For example, well, at least you've got one child here, implying that you've got another child, so you should be grateful.
So this is one that Gemma and I have actually discussed earlier on today as something that's kind of familiar. This was something that was said to me shortly after I lost my daughter. These kind of comments obviously create strong emotional reactions in us. We're going to feel angry, we're going to feel upset. Whenever someone uses the word at least, it's basically minimizing your experience. Like, you should be happy, you should be grateful. And actually in that moment, there is nothing that you feel happy or grateful about. Of course you're pleased to have another child, but that is not where your focus is right then. When you've lost a child, your focus is on the devastation of your baby that you've lost. And it is not lessened. That experience is not made any less devastating because you have another child. You are fortunate and lucky to have another child, but it doesn't mean that you are any less devastated. So I think those kind of comments, I guess the first point is to know that any reaction you have to that is okay. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel upset. The other thing, how to cope, I guess over time, what I've done is try to understand that even with the best intentions, people get it wrong all the time. So if they do not know what to say, they might be saying that thinking that what they're doing is reminding you of what you've got and that might make you feel better, or they might think that they're doing something that is helpful for you, even if it's not. So firstly, I try and be compassionate towards the other person, I suppose, in terms of, because that lessens my anger around it, not because I think it's okay that they've said that comment that angers me, but because it makes me feel better, and also because generally the intention isn't bad. I think it's slightly different if the intention is bad, but I think that's rarely the case. I try to realise that I can't control what other people do. So if people are going to make those kind of comments or say those kind of things, there's not much I can do about that. But the one thing I do that I feel is in my control is I try to communicate, if I can, how that comment made me feel. And I think sometimes that helps them to make those comments less in future, whether it be to me or to someone else. I was talking about this with Gemma earlier, and I said, when I lost my daughter and we were doing the post-mortem paperwork, one of the consultants said to me, at least you've got another child at home. And I felt like I'd been stabbed, like, that doesn't make it okay that my daughter's just died. But one of the things that I did is said, well, I appreciate that that's probably coming from a good place, but that comment actually feels really, really difficult for me to hear right now. And instantly she went, oh, sorry, I didn't mean that. You're right, of course. So I think if you give someone feedback, then they think about it more kind of next time. But it's also okay if you're too devastated to even speak, if you feel too sad or too angry, to kind of be able to communicate that. But going forward, what I try to do is to tell people how it makes me feel. If it's a family member or a friend and they keep making those kind of comments, then I try to say, and sometimes I do it in a less confrontational way. So if it's, a close friend or something, I'll say, oh, well, other people have made comments like this, and sometimes that makes me feel, and I say it a bit more general rather than you are making me feel, or sometimes people can hear it more if you say, well, I find lots of people say at least, when actually I find that difficult, or and sometimes other people hear it more. So I do what I can to try and educate people if I feel able to. I try to understand that whatever my reaction is kind of normal and okay. And if I've tried to tell people what might help me and they still don't listen to that, then I guess all I can do is to go, okay, that's a difficult comment, and I'm either going to speak to that person less, or sometimes that's the person that I won't have those difficult discussions with, or I don't know if that answers the questions, but those are some of the things that kind of help me. Anything you wanted to add, Gemma, or anything?
No, I totally hear everything you're saying, and I think that they are the tools that I also use. I'm also fortunate that I feel confident to tell someone in a as confrontational way as possible if they have made a comment that maybe made me feel uncomfortable or upset, or it may just be that they make a comment in a flippant, they don't mean it in a horrible way. It just rolls off the tongue. And I would say, well, actually, for me, it isn't like that. Or actually, for me, I do miss Oscar every single day. There's not actually a day that I don't think about him in some way. However, I do know for some people, that may not be the case. So like you said, when you would maybe say it in a generalised term, I would almost give them the bigger picture, but tell them actually, for me, it's not like that, because I think it's helpful for us where we can to educate people or those around us to not stereotype us all as coping or grieving in the same way, because it's not like that for everybody. Even just between mums and dads, it may be different. So yeah, I will always.
Really good point, actually, about giving people context.
Yeah.
I think not everyone kind of thinks about that. So the example you gave, that at least you had another child, sometimes if you say to people, well, I appreciate what you're saying, that yes, I have another child that I'm grateful for, but actually when you make that comment, it makes me feel like you feel like the loss is less important.
Yeah.
Got another child, or if you gave someone that context and made them realize how it makes you feel, they'd probably instantly go, oh god, no, I didn't mean that, or I'm sorry if it made you feel upset. Or most people would instantly, once they've got that context and they see your perspective on it, would change kind of how they approach that in future.
Yes, and that is generally what normally happens here. People, once they see your reaction and they appreciate they've made you feel upset or uncomfortable or awkward, they will generally apologise, because that wasn't their intention initially. And it could just be naivety, or you're the first person that they have spoken to who has experienced the loss of a child, and they why would they know? Why would they understand? And thank goodness that they don't. But we can use those opportunities to help them understand. So if that ever happened again, they may have learned some tools themselves about how to then maybe answer that question or to approach that situation differently next time.
Yeah, but I think, as we said, it's also okay if you don't feel able to do that, or if you feel that you have to do that via text or via an email, or or you speak to a close friend about it and they speak to that friend on your behalf, or don't feel like I should have said it in that moment, or or beat yourself up because you haven't, because it's okay if you didn't feel able to do that, or if that feels difficult. But perhaps, especially if it's happening regularly, or it keeps coming up, then it would be good to try and find a way to educate, because I think once you educate, they won't do it so much. But yeah, don't beat yourself up if that feels tough to do.